Hello and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Teresa Castro, and I'm a proud alumna and staff member in UNC's Office of Alumni Relations. Thank you all for joining us today for the Alumni Career Panel, Diverse Identities in the Workplace. Today, we will learn from and connect with fellow UNC Bears working in a variety of fields. Before I introduce you to our panelists, I would like to share a few housekeeping items. First, this event will be recorded and will be available on demand a week after the event on the alumni website. I will post the link in the chat. Two, I invite you all to start building your network and reach out to the panelists after the event. I will post their contact information in the chat towards the end of this virtual event. And three, I will provide introductions and moderate this panel, and then provide closing statement at the end. As we highlight the careers of these alumni, I invite students, fellow staff, and faculty to ask questions via the Q&A feature. Now, please help me welcome our panelists. Panelists, please introduce yourself by stating your name, pronouns, title, the organization that you work for, your UNC degree, and a little bit about yourself. Hannah, we'll start with you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Hannah Connor. I use they, them, their pronouns. I graduated from UNC with both a bachelor's and a master's degree in applied sociology. And my current role now is actually still at UNC as the director at the Center for Women's and Gender Equity.
Thank you, Hannah. Rosie, how about we go to you?
Wonderful. Hi, all. Nice to see you. I'm Rosie. My pronouns are they, them, and she, her. I'm a behavioral health associate consultant for a women-owned social services consultancy called the Stedman Group. I graduated from UNC with a Bachelor of Science in Human Services in 2021 and just wrapped up my Master of Public Health from the Colorado School of Public Health at the UNC campus in May 2024. It's nice to be here with you all.
Thank you, Rosie. And Jonathan, how about we go to you next?
Hey, I'm Jonathan Mata. My pronouns are he, him. I graduated from University of Northern Colorado in 2021 as well. Go Bears. I majored in geography with a minor in GIS and theater arts, and I'm currently a geospatial analyst at the Zenity Corporation. We're a big data group, and we mainly do government data work.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. And then Amber, why don't you close us out?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Amber Joy, CEO and founder of Quiver. I graduated from UNC in 2001, so that makes me the old lady on the panel. And I majored in business marketing. And let's see, I think that's about it. Is that all we were doing? Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
That sounds about good. Thank you, Amber. And perfect. We'll jump right into the Q&A portion of this event. So the question is, how did your UNC experience help you launch into your career and arrive at your current role? And Hannah, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Do you mind repeating the first part of the question?
Yeah, of course. How did your UNC experience help you launch into your career and arrive at your current role?
That's a fantastic question. My time at UNC, I think like many of the folks maybe on this panel and listening in, I was a first generation student with a very diverse background. So I actually sought out the University of Northern Colorado specifically because I looked at the demographics and the breakdown of our campus and was really excited to move into a space where there would be other people with similar identities. So that was like the first thing I did. Even at 17 years old, I was like, I need community. It was really important from where I was coming from and the lack thereof getting into this space. So that was the first thing. And I think since this is for folks at UNC, right, I think maybe some of our stories align in that capacity. And then integrating into UNC's campus was a bit tough for the first few years. It's a hard thing to do when you're first generation. And also when you sometimes just don't look like your fellow students on campus, even though there was, it was better in terms of diversity, I still certain classes could be difficult. I didn't always have the language or the knowledge to help me in certain situations. So the things that really assisted me during my time, both as an undergraduate and a graduate student, and what really benefited me were the people that surrounded me and the folks that ended up becoming my mentors. So that included not just professors, but other staff, as well as graduate students when I was an undergraduate that could really just help assist me in the process of what higher education is like, and how to do things when I was in school to then help me for my career, right? So like really big instances could be when professors really encouraged me to do internships so I get applicable career readiness, but also could put that on my resume, right? It's something that I can literally note down on my resume. And then also getting active in certain organizations like ASAP, which is Assault Survivors Advocacy Program on campus, also really helped me integrate not just like valuable skills around empathy and capacity for folks in really difficult situations, but also to, again, continue building that networking and having the opportunity to meet really wonderful people on campus. And due to a lot of those things, it was really difficult to leave campus. Well, I have had jobs, of course, outside of UNC, but so many of them are in UNC. And I think those mentors, the connection with other organizations on campus, and just people really supporting me helped me align with the position I have now, and really get through a space where not everyone looked like me, but was still very welcoming, if that makes sense. So I think, did I answer those questions fully?
You definitely did, and I think you touched on a couple pieces that I think others will, like community and finding your place on campus for sure. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you.
Rosie, how about you?
Yes. Well, thanks so much for your response, Hannah. Totally. Today, so you hit the nail on the head. Community is definitely like the biggest piece that I learned during my time at UNC. I was pretty involved in different jobs. I worked throughout my time at UNC. I worked in the Office of Health Promotion as peer health educator, did some work with Teresa for the University Program Council. We did some event planning, and also worked with the Assault Survivors Advocacy Program. So I was able to really see all these different pieces. And my biggest takeaway from my time at UNC was really that, like, with any project or space you enter, it's also a little bit of a you get out what you put in. So I think it really showed me the importance of taking the time to nurture different skills like community building. Also, I will say, I feel like at UNC, I learned the importance of balancing all these different life priorities. Some of the best advice I ever received from a mentor at UNC was, it's okay to drop the ball sometimes. You just have to know which ones are rubber and which ones are glass. So it really helped me learn how to prioritize what are the glass things in my life that I don't want to drop, whether it be mental health, whether it be different things in my personal life, whether it be a work project that I'm really, really wanting to be successful. I think UNC just really helped to make me successful in the field of consulting by teaching me about the importance of, one, community building, and two, balance. So yeah.
Thank you, Rosie. I think you touched on that perfectly. Jonathan.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Hannah and Rosie said. Community was a huge thing for me too at UNC. On a surface level, UNC really helped me because I didn't know what GIS was before I went to UNC. I figured out what it was, switched my major to geography, and then now that's what I'm doing for work. So, on the surface level, that's definitely how it helped me get into my career. But on a deeper level, like my fellow panelists said, it really was the sense of community. And like Rosie said, I really like the analogy about the glass ball and the rubber ball. And I have something similar, just, having the freedom and the space at UNC and in college to mess up and know that everything's going to be okay and just learn and figure out who you are within those mistakes. Right. I really, to all the students at UNC and just trying to figure out who you are, don't be afraid to mess up big. And, obviously you don't want to hurt anyone or anything like that, but don't be afraid to mess up big in the pursuit of who you are and what you love and what you want to do. So, and definitely just hang out with your community and talk to your neighbors in the dorms and off campus and meet people. Because at the end of the day, you're just a large accumulation of the people you love. So.
Thank you, Jonathan. And Amber, why don't you close us out with this question?
Absolutely. I'm always the one who goes against the grain a little bit here, but I will say, as a technical founder who is not a technical person, the number one thing I got from going to the Montfort College of Business and graduating with my business degree is the art of networking. I cannot overemphasize that enough. As someone who is a founder and a CEO, and I would not have my career today if I didn't learn very early to develop those relationships and that sense of community, maintain those relationships, and carry them throughout your life. And so I always say I have never applied for a job. When I graduated from college, every role that I got, all the way up to a chief human resources officer, was simply because of my network. And being able to say, hey, what's going on over there, blah, blah, blah. And actually, we're hiring for this. Let me introduce you to our CEO. And so when I made my pivot into entrepreneurship and said, you know what, I'm done doing this. I'm done having a boss. I will be my own boss and I will hire people on my own. It was 100% building the people around me from my network. So I know in a couple of years when I hire my chief of staff, I know exactly who that person will be. And I met her at UNC. So all of that to say, I 100% say if you don't take anything away, and I was a cheerleader at UNC back in the days where we were winning championships. But I always tell people, I'm still very close with those ladies. They're all brilliant women, and my business is focused on women. And so I have just taken them with me along the journey. So make those relationships, keep those relationships, and nurture them, because that's what's really going to give you a solid foundation.
Thank you, Amber. I think I completely agree with you on the networking, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a little later in the conversation. But moving on, how do you advocate for diversity and inclusion within your organization, and what specific initiatives or strategies have you implemented to promote a more inclusive work environment? So Rosie, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, absolutely. So something that I think I've learned at my current organization is, and something I appreciate that they do, is the kind of piece of like putting your money where your mouth is, like literally. So like right now we're having conversations about things like salary transparency, those like HR structures that uphold in turn recruiting and maintaining diverse identities in the workplace. So for me, I've had a chance to kind of step in on some of our, like, we call them JEDI initiatives. It's like our justice, equity, like diversity and inclusion initiatives. And I think throughout that like process, it's been really interesting. We're like a smaller company, so it's been cool to see how we can continue to advance JEDI work while also like upholding the evolving needs of our staff. Something that I think is an interesting space to be in is how to gather that information of what needs to change with like in a smaller company in a way that doesn't make anyone feel like their opinions are being kind of put on blast, if that makes sense, or their experiences are. So I think in this conversation of advocating for diversity and inclusion, for me, I've really been wanting to come from a space of maintaining people's comfort and safety in the workplace as we continue to push JEDI work. So yeah, that's been a little bit about my work now. In the past, I was part of the Stryker Scholarship at UNC, which is a leadership and development scholarship. And I know there are some Stryker alums in the room as well. And honestly, that set such a fantastic groundwork for me to be able to have those conversations and to feel prepared in working with folks who might just be coming from a different level of knowledge. And we all see the world differently, but I think the Stryker Scholarship really, really helped me to navigate how to effectively have those conversations, especially in the workplace.
Yes, thank you, Rosie. And I agree, as a Stryker alum, I think it was a great foundation in my undergrad experience. Thank you, Rosie. Jonathan.
Yeah, so how do I advocate for diversity and inclusion within my organization is the first step. I think this just applies everywhere in life is just listening. I think it's really easy to, not listen to people and just jump to your own conclusions. But at the end of the day, if you just listen to someone, it's so easy to be an ally. It's so easy to be a friend. And if you have empathy, even some people, I know there's a lot of people who struggle with empathy, and some of those people, whether it's like something that they were diagnosed with or something else that leads to that, it's really easy to just judge without listening. So when you choose to listen to people instead and be an ally and be a friend, it can really teach you empathy to understand them and the person they are. Because at the end of the day, especially in the workplace, whatever they did got them in the same place, in the same workplace that you're in. So I think what they have to say is definitely worth listening to. And everyone has different experiences. For me, it's really easy most of the time in my workplace, fortunately, because I'm a cisgender man. But, once I take a lot of time to actually be an ally and put energy into that and use my platform to help my other colleagues and stuff, it really just makes the workplace feel better. It makes it feel more comfortable for everyone. And maybe it's because I have a lot of empathy for people, but just because I'm not uncomfortable, I get uncomfortable when other people are uncomfortable, right? So if one of my colleagues isn't having a good time, that means I'm not having a good time. So I think it's just the main thing is just listening and being an ally, being a friend, and understanding people. And if you don't understand them, try your best to, because that's all you can really do.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective, Jonathan. I think listening is the foundation of a lot of things, especially in the workplace. Truly. Amber.
It might be the old HR in me, but I'm all about policies. So policies that really work towards people who you're looking at to diversify your workplace. So for myself, again, Quiver is an app-based community focused on women's pleasure. And so it's a big deal for me to make sure that women feel comfortable in the space that they're in and they're able to work without having to worry about childcare. They're able to get pregnant, have babies, and come back and not worry about, there's FMLA, but are you getting paid for that? And so what I have said is no matter what, we're always going to pay people when they go out on maternity leave. If you're out on paternity leave as well, we're going to pay for that. We're also going to make sure that you've got assistance with your child care, because I also know as a single mom of 3 that sometimes that's an issue and it makes it difficult to climb the ladder. So are you providing resources to your staff that says, I want you here, I care about what you're doing outside of work? And quite frankly, I'll be very honest with you, I am not one of those people that's like, we have all these events in the middle of the week and I want you here until 6 o'clock, because it impedes on people's life. It impedes on that time. And I know one of the reasons why I left traditional corporate America to start my own company was so that I wouldn't feel guilty when I did get done working, that I could have a personal life. And so making sure that you've got policies that really stand 10 toes down on saying, yep, we're here for diversity, we're here for inclusion, and we want people to have a sense of belonging. And so we're also talking about ongoing education and helping people with advancing their career. If somebody leaves Quiver, I'm not kidding when I say congratulations, but we have people leave very rarely. And that's because we have policies in place that say, you're free to leave, but good luck finding this. So, but all that to say, we create an environment that is welcoming. And we also have hiring policies that are very, very, we don't do personality tests and stuff like that. They tend to be discriminatory. And so we keep all of those things out the door, and we have people that come in and say, I think we should do this. And I'm like, nope, nope, nope. Nope, we're protecting this. So it's really putting your money where your mouth is and really investing in policies that say we're encouraging diversity.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Thank you, Amber. And Hannah.
Yeah, everyone's answer is so amazing. I'm really fortunate that I work in spaces where diversity, equity, and inclusion is at the forefront of all of the work we do. And even in spaces where it's not, because my identities are so intrinsic to my passion in the workspace, I always have to bring it at the forefront. So a few things that are kind of my philosophy is I oversee student employees as well as other full-time staffed employees. And my goal is to ensure that I see them as human first before I see them as employee or student, right? So understanding where people are at, how they're showing up, how their identities are showing up for them and in the space, if they're comfortable and safe, which I think a few of us have mentioned already in this panel. And then, of course, I am an adjunct instructor on campus as well. And I do some trainings when it comes to curriculum based for other nonprofits. So I'm always thinking too about the continuous education, not just of my students, but of myself. Like I love telling my students, I'm like, I didn't know that, and you just taught me that, right? But also the continuation of learning, because sorry, my cat, how conversations around diversity and identity have occurred 20 years ago is not how it occurred 10 years ago, and it's not how it's occurring now, right? So that continuous growth mindset. And also, I don't hold all identities, right? So in order to better understand and empathize, like John was saying, I have to ensure that I'm doing my due diligence and actively engaging in that work rather than assuming other people would just tell me, right? So to me, it's really imperative in the roles I hold, and even in the courses, like I teach research methods, right? To continuously integrate conversations around diversity, because it's always part of the conversation, or should be, right? So for me, it's a big passion and a strong part. And I love what everyone already said around policy and just how they engage with it. So.
Thank you, Hannah. I feel like you tied it all together for us. That was good. All righty, next question. And we're going to talk a little bit about the networking we mentioned earlier here. So, what strategies do you use to build and strengthen your professional network? And why is networking particularly important in your field? Jonathan, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I kind of want to answer the second part of the question first. So
Yeah,
in GIS, networking is really important because a lot of people, to be frank, don't know what GIS is. And that includes a lot of people on the internet, right? So the cool thing about GIS is there's a million ways to do one thing in it. Like if someone says they want a map of this, that, and the other, I could have a way to do it. Someone else could have a way. Someone else could have a way. And so networking is super important because there's so many different creative ways to do things in my field that I don't know about that you might have thought about. So just talking to you and listening to you and listening to, your processes and your creativity and your output, listening to all that, that might give me an idea to leverage something in my job. And so what strategies do I use to build and strengthen my network? One of the best piece of advice I got from my first job was when you're networking and meeting people, especially in like a professional setting, just embrace the awkwardness. Like so many people, like an example being like a conference or something. Like I was just at a conference like 3 weeks ago, and it was a big room full of people at like 7:30 in the morning, and everyone was just kind of talking to the people they knew, and no one wanted to embrace the awkwardness. So I was like, okay, whatever, I'm just going to embrace the awkwardness. And I just went in. It like I didn't intrude in the conversation, but I just went in where people were talking and introduced myself and read their name tags, and I just basically took that awkwardness and gave it a big bear hug and said, you know what, I don't care, I'm just going to rip the band-aid off, because when you embrace that, it makes other people feel comfortable because they don't have to deal with it. So I would just do that. Like I said earlier, really listen to people and also try to be relentlessly positive. Honestly, always try to find something to be positive about. I think when you're really positive in conversations and you really make an effort to be positive and be including and inclusive, I think that people will think of you when they need someone. So I mean, in my example, I used to be a consultant where a lot of us GIS people had to compete for work within the company. And one of the ways that I tried to leverage myself was, hey, I might not know everything that they know, but I'll be super positive. I'll come super excited and I'll bring my passion. And I like MMA a lot. So the only thing I'm going to say that they say a lot is you can't teach hard. So just embrace the awkwardness, listen to people, be positive, and yeah, wear your heart on your sleeve. It's okay.
yes, I think being okay with being uncomfortable. For sure. I agree with you, Johnny. Alrighty, Hannah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I really liked that as well, Jonathan, about the embracing awkwardness. I think honestly, that's so many different things in life, and you just end up becoming comfortable after time passes and it no longer feels awkward. And I think that's kind of networking in a nutshell. For me, so I got degrees within sociology, but my main careers have been within either higher education or in research. So research for universities and consultation, as well as hospitals, so healthcare. And in all those capacities, I truly, if I'm thinking or remembering correctly, all of them, I generally knew someone because of my networking at the University of Northern Colorado, or because folks I knew here knew people and introduced me down the line. So I started really I was told in my courses, right, like this is so important, but I don't think it was until junior year of undergrad where I really took it seriously. I think that made the world of difference. So networking, both with my advisor of when I was in undergrad and graduate school, helped me get internships. They helped me connect me with people that had similar research interests. They helped me connect with positions that I might have an interest later on. A really big thing people say, and it can sounds strange, but like sometimes positions don't exist, but they might when you know the right people, and they might even make it for you, which sounds really strange. And sometimes you have to ask yourself, like, is this how we should be making positions? But sometimes yes, and that's how it works, right? And that's how it's maintained. So like when you meet a director of a nonprofit, and maybe there's no positions available, if they know your name, they might reach out and be like, this is a great fit when something does become open, right? And that's something I learned along the way. And I don't think it's just important within sociology or GIS, but it's probably imperative to all. If I had to guess what all the panels will say, it's imperative to all of our majors, all of our degrees, and all the jobs that we hold now. Even my current director role, it's because I truly believe I had amazing recommendations that were already within the department. I'm not saying that it wasn't my skill set and my capacity, because I think that's a big player, but also networking is a huge player too. They both are part of a bigger picture of ensuring career success later in the line. So I'll stop there and let the other panelists speak, but I think I hopefully answered that question fully.
Yes, I think your answer was phenomenal, Hannah. Thank you. And Amber.
Oh, I live and die by networking. So I would say definitely take every opportunity that you can. So for myself, because I'm running a business and my business does not get to run unless we make sales, if I don't get subscribers, if I don't get clients for coaching and workshops and retreats that we do, then there is no Quiver. So for myself, it's about taking all those opportunities where I can be in front of women and male allies and talk about what my business is and talk about what we're doing for the community and talk about how downloading and subscribing to the Quiver app can change your life. So if I don't have that opportunity to stand in front of people and tell this story, then I don't have a business. The second piece to that was, I think what you said, Jonathan, about embrace the awkward is the number one key. I don't, even when I go out to eat dinner with my children, I make it my business to introduce myself to at least two people. So no matter where I'm at, no matter what I'm doing, I will find a way to work into conversation. Hey, nice to meet you. My name is Amber Joy. What do you do? Right. And that's truly because you never know who you're going to run into. And if any of you guys are planning on being entrepreneurs down the line, you will not succeed. You can quote me on this. You can come back to me in 20 years from now and say you were right. You will not succeed if you're afraid to network, if you are afraid to talk to people, even if right now your moment is, I'm still a student, doesn't matter. When I hired my interns at the beginning of the summer, I literally met one of them at Target. So introduce yourself. You never know who you're going to talk to. It's hugely important for people in my world, right? And they always say, if you're asking for advice, ask for money. If you want money, ask for advice. And I'm always looking for venture capitalists and angels and people to invest in my business. So I'm constantly asking for advice. So all of that to say, networking, live and die by it. Like I told you, I never got a job that I actually had to apply for. So if you do it and you do it well and you get in the habit of it, it's sticking out your chest and saying, who cares? The worst they're going to say is no, then you will win every time.
Yes. Thank you, Amber. I'm feeling inspired. Rosie.
I'm also feeling inspired by all of you. Thank you. I'm like taking notes in the corner. My advice for folks who are listening in or potentially watching this recording later is that while you're a student or a recent graduate, it is like the most ideal time to network, in my opinion, because you have the student card to play. So you can really just cold call, reach out to anyone, say that you're a student, generally say what you're interested in. You can throw in a strength or two of yours if you'd like. And then you've got a template, and people are usually really eager to help out students or people who are newer to a field. So my advice is to just use that as much as you can. If there's a space you're interested in or a field you're interested in that's potentially even different from your major, there is not going to be a better time to really pursue networking, even if you don't know anyone in the field. Yeah, I think really just using that student card while you have it is huge. So that's my biggest recommendation. And it's okay if you do it imperfectly, and just what everyone else said, like embrace the uncomfortableness with it, but also this is a great time to be doing it. So I definitely recommend doing it while you can. And you can do it afterwards too, obviously. But when you're a student, people tend to look for opportunities for you a little bit more.
Yeah, I will echo what everyone has said, and Rosie, with the current student perspective. And what I tell all of the students that I get to talk to in my role is use the Bear Network. People are proud of their alma mater and where they went to school. And we have all six people here, are alums. We clearly care about the Bear Network because we're here giving back our time, right? Either working here or as volunteers. And so really leaning into the Bear Network, even if you're not an alum yourself just yet, saying, hey, I noticed that you also went to UNC. I'm a student there now. And that's like the perfect opening line. Even if you don't really know what you're asking for, people are happy to connect with you. I accept every single person that went to UNC. every
Me
single
too.
person on LinkedIn because it's powerful. But yes, thank you, everyone. I think your answers were great. Oh, Jonathan, yes, if you want to add
Yeah,
something.
I just wanted to add to that. Actually, I got my job now. I was trying to find a new job for my previous consulting job because I wasn't really feeling it anymore. And I applied to a bunch of jobs. I got to the first and second round of the interview, and then they ended up picking someone else. You know how it goes. And I guess this will probably be a good segue to the next question. But I just ended up looking at the UNC GIS alumni page, and this one was like, "Hey, someone just left my company. I need to hire someone." Kind of to what Amber said, I didn't do an actual application, no cover letter. I just was like, okay, here's my resume. We'll see what happens. And now that's where I work. So funny
Heck
enough, yeah,
yeah,
that's exactly how it works. And yeah, just wanted to
exactly.
add that.
The power of networking. I appreciate that story, Jonathan. I think you put it into perspective even better.
Yeah, thank you.
For sure. Alrighty, moving on to the next question, y'all. Would you all be willing to share a difficult lesson you have learned throughout your career path? And how might students avoid learning this the hard way? Hannah, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it's a great question. This sounds really cheesy, but I think for me, it was learning to be okay with mistakes and learning from them to grow and be better. So early on in my career, it felt I was within the research field, and there's a lot of pressure for a lot of really good reasons to do projects, research projects perfectly, because if it's not perfect, sometimes it can have ethical ramifications on populations, right? So there's a really high level of standard, just like probably every single one of our careers as we're sitting here, to ensure the success for communities at large, right? Like we have to ensure that the data and the things that we're doing, the processes are perfect. And just like in my roles now, when I am interfacing with students, I have to ensure that I'm on all the time so I don't ever provide a bad experience for a student or do any form of harm, right? My job is to ensure growth and safety and comfort, and I take it really seriously. And also, we're human beings, right? So sometimes maybe there's a typo in an email, or maybe you forgot to add in an attachment to something, or something might be slightly late. And I would take that so seriously in the beginning of my career that I think it did more harm than good, right? I was taking those faults a little too seriously to the point where then I wasn't really growing from those processes because I was so focused on the mistake rather than, okay, how can I improve? How can I be better? How can I ensure that if I'm working to not make these mistakes again, how can I put things in place and processes? And how can I be really kind to myself and give myself some like credit and some comfort in those moments rather than being really restrictive. And I think when I talk to students at UNC, the folks that are on here, I see students put so much pressure on themselves for this like ideal perfection. And there's a lot riding on us, right? Because it's not just us. We come from communities that are really dependent on our success too. And it can feel so overwhelming. So my biggest advice that I wish I gave myself then, and I'm giving everyone listening to and on this panel, is to just be kind when making mistakes, and also like it's okay to make them and we can grow from them. It's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. And I think I just didn't realize that until maybe a little too late, right? So that would be something that I learned and hopefully can pass on to others.
Thank you, Hannah. I appreciate your story and being vulnerable. Rosie.
I think for me, a lesson that I've learned. So, like I mentioned, I graduated in May. I worked while I was in grad school and in undergrad, and now I'm in like a full-time role. I think what I've learned is the importance of, if I know I'm entering a busy season of work, I mean, consulting is very like peaks and valleys when you have projects on your plate, like the turnaround time is quick and the workload is high, right? And so during that time, like during those times, I've learned to put like safeguards up in my life and the importance of like making sure that my life is well maintained so that I can accommodate times when the work that I enjoy doing takes up more of my time without taking away from the things that I need and have to do to have a happy and successful social life, home life, physical health life, all those pieces. So I think for me, a lesson that I am continuing to learn, but have really deeply learned since graduating, is the importance of putting up safeguards of kind of the things that I need to do to make sure that I can continue to be engaged and successful in my job.
Yeah, thank you, Rosie. Jonathan.
I totally agree with both of what my previous panelists said. I kind of want to piggyback off both of them a little bit. So starting off with what Hannah said, I think that's super great. I totally agree. Something my dad always told me growing up was, if you're just looking in the rearview mirror, you'll crash the car. So eventually you got to just keep going, look forward. And Rosie, what you said, I thought was super awesome too. I think safeguards are super important. Like, and I think what both of y'all said kind of ties with each other. Like, if you're spending a lot of your time stressed out about that mistake you made, that's a way that you're not putting in that safeguard. And that's going to take away from your free time, which is then going to take away from the energy you put into your work. And then it's just like a domino effect of catching up. And then you're staying up late because you want to get back to free time, as we all do. So I definitely agree with those two things. And another thing I want to add is, especially in the job applying process right after college, it can be super tiring, super draining, and you'll get a lot of no's. And honestly, as crazy as this sounds, that's totally okay to get a lot of no's. Like, you're going to get a lot of no's before you get a yes, and that's okay. Because how I see it is, like, each no is a step towards a yes. So you get another no, okay, cool, it's another step forward. It's another step forward. And there were so many no's that I got that I looked 3, 6 months after, when I'm in my new position, I'm like, man, that would have not been a good fit. I'm so glad I avoided that. So I think what's meant to be will happen, and just be relentlessly positive, and yeah, just know that all those no's are going to lead to a yes, and it's always going to. There's no such thing as a mistake, right? You either win or you learn. So
That's good perspective there, Jonathan. Thank you. Amber, let's close that question out.
Sure thing. I I have to ditto and echo everything everyone said. Those workplace boundaries are paramount, and I have to just say again, not to just keep talking about Quiver, but that's what we teach people from the boardroom to the bedroom. You have to have boundaries, and you have to be very clear, because as a new graduate, for me, I know how it was where I started working at Stars Entertainment, the movie company. That was my first job out of college. And I was at Stars until like midnight. And I remember being in like the producer's bay and working on commercials and interstitials in between, and thinking like, the harder I grind, the longer I'm here, the quicker I'll climb this ladder. Absolutely not. I was teaching people how to burn me out, and that I would accept it, and that I wasn't going to get paid not another dollar more, right? And that when I did get promoted, we can promote her to this little role and then give her a few extra dollars and she'll be happy because she likes being here until midnight. No, I hated it, right? And so we teach people how to treat us. And then the other thing that I would say is, absolutely positively, don't feel like you're locked into whatever your degree is. And so by that, my degree was in business marketing, and now I run a tech company. And the most tech that I knew was how to turn on my computer, turn it off, and all of the stuff in between that works in my Microsoft suite at the time, right? So all of that to say, if you get to a place where you're like, I have this degree, but I'm more attracted to this over here, then follow that, pursue that, because your career, you're young, you're not locked into anything. Your degree does not mean this is the end of the road. And I think that was a big mistake for me, because it took a long time for me to understand that, just because your degree is in business marketing, and I'm terrible, I hire people to do marketing for me now. It doesn't mean that's where you're stuck at. It just means that's what you got your degree in. And if I had learned that lesson a lot sooner, I probably could have had that balance between the boardroom and my pleasure life a lot sooner than I did at 40, even though I'm 45 now.
No, I think y'all are teaching me all these things right now. So I hope students are really gaining some good insight right now. Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. So, how important is cultural competence in your role? And what steps do you take to ensure you are sensitive to the diverse backgrounds of your colleagues and clients? And Rosie, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my role, we do a lot of community health work. So sometimes I will be working with a community that I potentially don't necessarily identify as part of. When those pieces come up, I think it is so, so important to take that role of listening and truly understanding what it is that the client or community wants, and making sure that they are getting what they want, not what myself or a teammate thinks is best for them. So for me, cultural competence is huge in my role, especially working in a health field. I think it's paramount. I think that the steps that I take to ensure I'm sensitive to backgrounds of colleagues and clients or folks that we're working with, I think it's truly taking the time to get to know one another in a way that like respects other people's boundaries, but just like as a like coming in kind of the health consulting space, like asking questions to make sure that I am like respecting and understanding like clients' needs, and also for my colleagues, like making sure that the conversations that we're having are comfortable and those pieces. So all that to say, cultural competence is huge in any health field, especially community health work or health education work. And yeah, community engagement is huge as well. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Rosie. Jonathan.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Rosie said. I think it's huge. So in my role, cultural competency is really important because I'm lucky enough to work for a company that hires a lot of different people of a lot of different backgrounds. I'm proud to say that. We have a very, very diverse like group of people in my company. There's like 80 of us, and it's super diverse. And cultural competency is super important because I want to treat people how they want to be treated, and everyone in my job has different cultures, and you never know where something in someone else's culture might come up, right? Like if I'm working on a map for something, like there's been maps that we've made for the Forest Service where there were some outdated words in some of the data that we all had to go redo just because like people looking at that data don't want to be seeing those words. It's not going to be good because a lot of the data is also going to the public, right? Like a Forest Service visitor map or something. You wouldn't want an old outdated word on there that might bother some people. So it's really important to just keep up with the cultural competency and just learning. And I think that's a big part of our world nowadays too. People deserve to be treated how they want to be treated. And at the end of the day, people's culture is a lot of their identity. So you have to really be not just delicate with it, but also be proud of it. You know, it's not something delicate that you have to, walk around with eggshells, but it's something you should be proud of. But maybe not delicate, it's not the right word, just respectful is the right word. Proud and respectful.
Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that. Amber.
Cultural competency is a huge part of what we do. We're dealing with women and women's pleasure lives. And so number one, we have to start with defining what woman means to you. And so even when starting Quiver, it was, okay, so are we serving anyone who identifies as a woman, or are we talking strictly female? What are we doing? And so being respectful and understanding of there's different definitions out there, and which definition are we going to serve? And we have decided to serve anyone who identifies as a woman. And there's layers to that because we have to be culturally sensitive within the app. So when you're in the app and you see there's a couple of different journeys. What are the journeys? Is a new life journey? Are we only showing cisgendered females who are pregnant, or are we showing couples who may not look traditional, who may be pregnant at that time? And so there's a lot of things that we have to take in consideration. And it's always at the forefront of my mind, right on down to, hey, if I'm talking to a Black woman about her experience, because the app covers, again, everything on how to have a pleasure first life. And so if your work life is screwy, and when we start talking about code switching in the app and giving advice on how to manage that, am I speaking to a Hispanic woman? Am I speaking to a Black woman? Am I speaking to an Arab woman who's a Muslim, right? So there's different ways that we have to approach that and make sure that we're inclusive. And so cultural competency is kind of my everyday. And then when we're hiring, as well as making sure that we're hiring people that can represent each one of these groups, because perspective is everything. And so if I'm saying it makes sense to me, and someone else might raise their hand slowly and say, yeah, that's cute, Amber, but over here it doesn't fly, right? So yeah, it's a big deal. It's pretty much all we do all day over here. So yeah, being culturally competent is probably a skill that you definitely want to walk away with having, for sure. It's not just your world.
Thank you, Amber. I appreciate that. All righty. Oh, yes, Jonathan.
I just wanted to add, I really liked what Amber just said at that last part. It's not just your world, because one of the benefits of being culturally competent is there's so many cool cultures out there, right? Like one good example that I can use in my personal life is as a cisgender straight man, I was never invited to go to a Pride celebration. I didn't even know what it was. And then fast forward to 2019, I'm in Barcelona for the summer, and my cousin, who's identifies as gay, she was like, "Hey, do you want to come to Barcelona Pride with me?" And I was like, I barely even knew what that was. So I went, and I had a really fun time, and I met a lot of cool people. And that was just something that I would have never experienced if I wasn't willing to open up my cultural competency to experiencing new things. And it's like I was saying earlier, just being an ally, even if it's not something that you identify with. It's like what Rosie was saying. There's no problem in understanding it too, right? Because it's cool. Like just in simple terms, outside of work, it's just genuinely cool. Everyone's cool. There's so many cool people in this world, and you should take more time to learn about it.
I agree with you, Jonathan. Thank you. And I guess I have to experience Barcelona Pride. Um,
It's
that
awesome.
sounds like a great time.
It was super cool.
Perfect. Alrighty. Next question, y'all. How do you envision the future of diversity in the workplace evolving? And what role do you hope to play in that evolution? And Jonathan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I hope that eventually, and I think it's starting to happen, that everyone can ditch like the work self versus like the actual self. I think that there's definitely like at work you have to be professional and all of that. And that's probably where it came from. And then it turned into this thing where you have like your work self. Like, no, I think that everyone needs to be their genuine self. And I think that being your genuine self and bringing your experiences to the table, that's going to make the workplace better. That's going to lead to better work. It's going to lead to better outcomes. And yeah, I want to play a part in it because I want to be a champion in that. I don't know if y'all can tell. I feel like I'm a very chill, nonchalant person. And I promise you, I act the same exact way at work. I refuse to change who I am. Oh, you have to do this and that. I refuse to change who I am. I am who I am. I have, a lot of tattoos that I show in the office. I don't care. Like people like my dad, I remember when I was getting tattoos, was like, oh, no one's going to hire you. The people who won't hire me, good. I don't want you to hire me. Be yourself, like genuinely. Obviously, be respectful, be professional, but this whole work self, outside of work self, no, just be yourself no matter what. If your coworkers judge you, report them to HR. Honestly, who has time for that? At the end of the day, you deserve to be there as much as everyone else, and you deserve to be yourself at your job. I mean, how you spend your days is how you spend your life, and if you're going to be at work a lot of the time, be yourself. So,
Thank you, Jonathan. Hannah.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I think it's beautiful to see more and more generations being their authentic self within the workplace. I think that's definitely a key to this changing tides of diversity within different types of organizations and workplaces. I do think though that like it can sometimes feel scary, right? For students, like when I was a student, I was like, will I be accepted in these spaces? I went into a role right after my graduate degree, which was a leadership role within a research field. And a lot of people didn't look like me, right? And it was quite scary to have to navigate experiences where people might have judged me based off of the things I can't control versus my actual work ethic. And it's really nice though that while I did have some instances that weren't the best, a lot, like overwhelmingly a large amount of people comprehended that the identities I hold and was able to bring into the research field was a benefit to the work we're doing and a celebration rather than something to be cautious around, right? And I really love seeing that process shift within not just like the research field, but in the educational field, within the healthcare field that I've been able to be part of, and other fields that I've just been able to see friends and family grow in as well. So for me, like especially like I think particularly my non-binary experience, sometimes it's hard because it's a continuous coming out process over and over and over again. But it's really beautiful that I work at a place that is fully not just accepting of that, but where I can do that, right? Because some places it's still a really difficult thing to do. So yes to the genuine self, but also I understand the fear sometimes that comes with it. And being able to be your authentic self, though, does mean a world of difference at the workplace, like Jonathan was saying.
Thank you, Hannah. I agree. I think tread lightly sometimes for sure, but I appreciate that perspective. Amber.
The future, I think it looks pretty good. and I won't get political, but I'll say if the election goes well, I think we don't have too much more to fear about. But all this to say, in terms of, like I said, I'm 45 years old. So when I first started my career, it was still very much so dreadlocks are unprofessional. Your tattoos, we don't show those. And I have them all over the place. And so we've had advancements in that I see I see the future looking hopefully bright, and that people won't have to go back in the closet and people won't have to make code switching part of their regular life, right? I think part of it for me was really being authentic all the time. And so I was always like, this is who I am. This is how I am. You can like it, love it, or hate it, or whatever. And to your point, Jonathan, if my visible tattoos were a problem for you, then I didn't want to work for you anyways. It just wasn't going to work. And so I think that we're heading in the right direction. And so the second part of that question where you're asking, hey, what's the role that I play in that? Before we started this conversation, we were talking about dress codes. And I am just so anti dress code. And so for myself and for my company, we don't have a dress code because I show up like this. And because I don't care what you have on your body, I care, can you advance my app so I can 10x it and sell it and exit one day, right? So that's what I care about. I care about if you can do the work, but I am not everyone. And so my advice would be really be intentional about where you accept employment. Because if you have a problem at all with, I don't want to code switch, I want to wear my locks, I want to have my visible tattoos, I want to be valued for what's in here and not what's out here, you have control of that. You absolutely do. And if you can't find a space that will accept you for that, you could be like me and start your own business, which is a whole nother thing. But all that to say, if you don't have the road already paved for you, pave it yourself. And you absolutely can. So I think that's where we also, your generation is really doing well in that. I don't think you guys feel stuck in a space like I have to go do this. We're kind of living in a gig economy. And so if you're smart enough and you did the work that you're supposed to do at UNC, then you could probably still survive. So, and not just survive, thrive. So I think part of us would be being able to control that would be kind of bucking the system and saying, no, I'm not going to come work for you 9 to 5 if this is how you're going to act. So, but don't
Yeah.
tell your parents I said that.
Thank you, Amber. I think it was a perfect segue into our final question of the evening. Can you all provide a final word of advice to UNC Bears currently seeking a job in your industry or really just wanting to enter the world of work? We'll start with Hannah.
That's such a great question. And I think I'm going to kind of steal what people have been saying before this. And that's continuously try, like Jonathan was saying, rejections are completely common. We apply to so many positions, but the worst that can happen, just like Amber was saying, is that someone might say no, and then you move on, right? You continue to grow. So for me, it's the continuing to look for those resources. While all of us talked about the importance of networks and mentorship, the biggest thing I think folks can do for themselves is to like make that road for yourself, like we've been saying. For most people, opportunities don't just fall in our laps. We have to grab them, right? We have to put ourselves out there. We have to introduce ourselves at the restaurant, even if we're eating with our family, to the 2 additional people. It's part of that process is to continue to try and look for those opportunities, because chances are they're there, or you can create them even if they're not fully visible. And that's the best advice I think I have. It can be difficult for students, I think, when you're like in our institutions, any institution, any job, to advocate for yourself. But it's so important to get ahead, is to continuously be like, I know humility is fantastic, being humble is great, and also to really get ahead, being like, no, I got this, I'm the expert, I'm the professional, you want me because I can do these roles. And I think that's such a key aspect, and so useful for so many different forms of the career and the hiring process. So I think that's what I would leave folks with, is like continue to try to find those opportunities even if they're not fully visible.
Thank you, Hannah. Rosie.
Yes, use your network like we talked about. My friend's dad says this all the time. So my friend works like in the acting space and has to do a lot of like cold calling, I would say, going to auditions, those pieces, follow-ups. And he always says the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And I think about that all the time, especially if I'm in a space where I'm like, okay, cool. I know that maybe I want to explore and follow my curiosity in this area or field that I might not have any connections in. I'm just going to reach out. And if I don't hear back, I'm going to follow up. And if I don't hear back again, message received, let me find someone else. And so I think it's definitely just a matter of not being afraid to reach out and using your network. I think that's what I would tell somebody who is wanting to enter like the full-time career space.
Thank you, Rosie and Jonathan.
Yeah, I totally agree with what the two fellow panelists have said so far. I think all of that's super true, and all I can add to that is just be open-minded. If when I was 10 years old, everyone's like, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" I wouldn't have said GIS analyst, right? But I ended up really liking it. So just be open-minded, try new things, and that's pretty much it. Just be open-minded, don't give up, and try to ditch the imposter syndrome when you can. It's really easy, especially when you're a recent graduate or you're in college, just to feel like when you reach out to someone, you're annoying them and you're pestering them, but you're really not. Like, you belong in that space just as much as they do. It doesn't matter your skill level. It doesn't matter your expertise. The only gate of entry is you wanting to be there, and you deserve to be there. So it's not like they're too busy to reach out to me. I'm like college student, whatever. No, like, reach out to them, because at the end of the day, most people learn by teaching. So they're going to want to teach you, because then worst case, even if they're selfish and they don't want to do it just out of the kindness of their heart, they'll teach themselves something by teaching you. So at the end of the day, reach out to people. Most of the time they'll say yes.
Thank you, Jonathan and Amber.
I would say my advice would be persistent. Again, to Jonathan's point, I know for myself, I am insanely, ridiculously, I don't even know if I could define it, how busy I am. And so a lot of the times when you're reaching out to people, it isn't that they don't want to help you. It isn't that you don't belong in the room or you're not as important. And I'm not saying just pursue at all odds, but extend a little bit of grace, especially if you're reaching pretty high to make those contacts, right? And it's typically speaking because they just want to get back to you. There's just only 24 hours in the day, and I only sleep 3.5 hours a night anyways. So be persistent. The other piece of that would be take the feedback. I remember coming out of school and I was so eager, and I was like, I'm a top A student and I graduated top of my class and I'm amazing and blah, blah, blah. And I was amazing, but I also had a lot of room to grow. And it took a long time for me to figure out that I needed to take the feedback. I needed to be coachable, and there was a lot for me to learn. And if you're willing to be coachable and if you're willing to learn from others, and it's not a personal attack. I'm telling you, if you get good leaders, it is not a personal attack. They want to see you succeed. So take that feedback, run with it, do some self-reflection, and you will tenfold grow. And there's constructive feedback and there's crappy feedback. You'll know the difference. Take the good stuff.
Thank you, Amber. And then we have a representative from the Center for Career Readiness, who will provide some resources.
Thank you, Teresa. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Espinosa. I use she, her pronouns. Excuse me, I graduated from UNC in 2016 with my bachelor's, in 2018 with my master's. I am now a career counselor at UNC Center for Career Readiness. Here at the Center for Career Readiness, we are here to support you with all things career while you are a current student on campus, as well as up to 3 years after graduation. Our office connects UNC Bears to quality on-campus community and national employers through the Career Tool Handshake and hosting on-campus career fairs each semester. Students are encouraged to schedule an appointment with our career counseling team for resume and cover letter reviews, job internship and graduate school search support, mock interviews, networking tips, and more. We offer drop-in hours, both in-person and virtual appointments, as well as job fairs and workshops throughout each semester. Further information on all of this can be found on our website at unco.edu/career, or you're welcome to email us at career.readiness@unco.edu.
Thank you, Jessica. And thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today. It is always an honor and a pleasure to host fellow UNC Bears and hear about their UNC experience, their unique identities, and their career paths and industry insights. Throughout the semester, we will be hosting more additional virtual alumni career panels. And if you want to learn more, you can visit www.unco.edu/alumni/careers. And before we drop out of the call, if everyone can unmute themselves very quickly, and we're going to give you a countdown. 3, 2, 1, go Bears!
Go Bears!
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.